Hey YouTube, friends and family, Fast Eddie here. Well, I finally got these carburetors tuned. They are Holleys, modified from Pro Systems, and we are going to get in the discussion of all the pros and the cons. So, here we go. Hey YouTube, friends and family, Fast Eddie here. Yes, I am switching to Holley carburetors on my Roadster. I am tired of dealing with the Edelbrocks, the tuning issue, just the drivability. It's hard to tune out, to get a happy medium between lean and rich. So originally I was using 1406 or 1405s, which is 600 CFM Edelbrock carburetor. They became so loaded up with junk that I wasn't able to get them to work anymore. And rather than buying new ones, because I was getting frustrated was wanting to switch to Holley to begin with, but rather than just dealing with those carbs anymore, I put some 750 Edelbrocks on there, which would either be 1407 or 1411, just for anybody's reference. And they were better. I felt like I had a little more, a little better performance out of them. Like I don't really need that. That's not what I was looking for. But they were too rich at an idle, and eventually, of driving it around for a couple days, and would fell off plugs. So rather than keep dealing with that situation, this winter I was making the decision to switch to Holleys. What we have here, there's these two here on the left are the two that I'm going to be using. Just the one on there on the right is just to show you an example of what it's more of a stock carburetor. They're both factory carburetors, but these two here I sent to this company right here, Pro Systems. I worked with Patrick. He's seems to be the expert on in his business of working on these Holleys. It's a pretty big business from what I understand. They do other stuff too, but originally I called him up and I was wanting to know how much carburetors would be, just his carburetors. So what they do is, for anyone's information, there's a number of companies out there that are aftermarket companies that build Holley based carburetors, say 4150s, Dominators, what have you, and they have aftermarket bodies on them that have provisions for more jet changes on the top side, air bleeds, I guess you could call it, and in the metering blocks, so they're much more tunable. So he sent me back a quote. First, what thing they do is they take a complete build of what your car and motor, transmission, everything, what you're using and what you're going to use it for, what your motor is, all that stuff, and then they compute it into their system, and they come up with the carburetor that's going to work best. What he had spec'd me out for carburetors and what I do with the car was, he said they're about a 760 to 780 CFM Holley double pumper, of course, and they were pretty pricey. So I was like, I'm not ready to pull that trigger. So I was kind of working back and forth. These were some carburetors that I've had for quite a while. These two here on the left, that I picked up at swap meets or garage sales. They are Holley 750 double pumpers, mechanical double pumpers we're talking about. And so I didn't have much into them at all, and I was going to convert them myself to run on a blower, boost reference them, do everything that I needed to do to make them work, And I knew that that was going to be time consuming. So the more I thought about it, I was like, you know, I wonder if they would modify my carburetors that I have. So I had called Pro Systems back and talked to Patrick, and he said, oh hell yeah, we can save you some money and build the carburetors that you have. Why don't you send me pictures and showing list numbers on the carburetor, and I can tell you what I can do for you. So I did that, and he sent me back a quote and said that he could really make those carburetors work really well, and the price was a whole lot cheaper. So that's what I did, and these are the carburetors that I have. I have not tore into them to see all the modifications they have done. I can tell from the outside that they've done some work to them. And I didn't know that when they do the modification for blower forced induction, whether it's a blower or a turbo, they don't boost reference them. He tunes them somehow to where that different vacuum source isn't needed. So I don't know a whole lot about what they've done to the carburetor other than what I'm going to show you. So on these carburetors, what they do, let's see if I can show you here. Trying before the sun's not going to, shade won't be blocking here. So right in this area right here, these are drilled out, and then they're tapped, and then he threads in what I can guess, because I haven't talked to him yet, but it looks like a brass Allen head, and then they drill it to a jet size accordingly to what they're speccing the carburetors at, and they're done on both ends, primary and secondary. So here is a factory one, and what mine looked like probably before I sent them. See if I can get this carburetor more in the sun. So you can see there that those are not removable. They're just got holes in them. And in fact, I think this one here has been modified somehow, because these on this end are much bigger than they are over here on this end. So like I said, this is a carburetor that came from a swap meet. $60 on there. I don't know what I paid for it, but it was cheap enough, and I needed parts for haul of carburetors. I thought, well, I'll just throw it into my bucket. So some other things that you can see of modifications that they done. So there, here on the metering block, you can see plugs in there, and here on the metering block of this one, you can see it's open, and I don't know if you can see there, but they are drilled into this area here. See if I can get much. You see that? That looks like a modification that's been done, but I'm not sure on that. And I didn't figure out. I wanted to remove the metering block, break the seal of that gasket. It's just not something I wanted to do. So they mill the choke horn off. They say they get a better performance without that choke horn there. And they do so the first thing they do, let's see if I can get this. Sorry about the shade here, hoping you can see this. This is a work order sheet that they print up for the carburetor, and it's got all the specs of the carburetor that they're putting into it, making the changes. So you can see I have a high air and an idle air. Those would be those ones on top that I just showed you. Now, as you see on an aftermarket carburetor, where they're using their own body, they already come built to handle jets in this area. If you remember back the video where I rebuilt that Brawler carburetor, it was built that way. So that's why I know that. But so yeah, I'm excited to put these carburetors on. He claims, telling me and also reading on their literature, that they're pretty much dead on with dialing these carburetors to work right out of the box with your application that you're putting them on. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about getting them put on. There's a number of things that I had to do that I didn't realize. One thing is the Edelbrocks were turned, the carburetors, end for end. And now with the Hollies, I'm going sideways on them, so linkage, of course, had to be changed. I had Enderley linkage, and I like Enderley, but I didn't want to have to buy a whole nother linkage setup just because I went going sideways. So I did talk to, I think it was Enderley that I talked to, and they told me all the pieces that I would need to make that change. So they gave me the part numbers, and then I called one of the blower companies. I can't remember who it was now. I think it might have been Elke Digger, and they sent me all the pieces that I would need to convert it without having to buy a whole kit. So I saved, I think, $100. And then I had to buy carb spacers because the carburetors were interfering, being sideways on the linkage interfering on the blower. So now I'm another inch higher on the carburetor sticking over my windshield. So all right, well, that's an update. This video will continue. I'll be putting them on the car and taking it for a drive, letting you know how they run. So my carburetors just got back today from Pro Systems, and it turned out that the problem with them, or one of the problems that I actually could see it when they first arrived. I noticed that the plugs were not in all of the holes of the metering blocks, and I kind of thought that was a problem, but I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody, and then put them back in the box. I think about a month, I waited about a month before I put the carburetors on, and immediately I started having problems. So eventually, with sending pictures back and forth to Patrick, I think he's the owner of Pro Systems, he's like, yeah, there's a problem there. Those plugs somehow got left out, so they got shipped back. So not really going to talk bad about them. I'm sure they're a good, they know how to do their work. So I'm not sure what happened, but there is a lack of communication. So anyways, this is going to be the first time opening them. We're going to see what they've done to them. It's been quite a fiasco with these carburetors. I keep telling myself if I had to go through this much problem with them, I probably wouldn't have gone with them. The reason that I went with them was because all the other companies was a long turnaround time, and they indicated they could do it in a week. Well, that's not true. That might be an old calculation or estimation of time, and now they have a lot more business because it don't take a week. It took a lot longer than a week. I'd have to look back at my paperwork, but
you know, I would say, it seemed like a couple months, but I don't think it was quite a couple months. Well, I can see that the plugs are in on that one. That one's a little more covered, but it looks like they're in on that one. So yeah, everything looks good. He said that when he gets them, usually, when people get them, they usually don't need, they work right out of the box. So that's what I'm hoping for. So we'll be taking the idle box back off again and putting these Hollies on and giving it a go again. I tell you, it was pretty frustrating. First time of trying to make it work. It would only run. It would only run if the accelerator was pumping fuel. So if those were squirting out fuel, that was the only time it would run. And there was basically no idle. You were running at 2,500, 3,000 RPMs, and it would die. Like I said, if these weren't squirting, it wasn't going to run. So, all right. I'm glad they're back, and I'm looking forward to putting them on without any issues. So we're gonna get back to it. So first problem that I had putting them on, they would not run. And I remember unboxing them and seeing that I saw something that didn't look right. And I got, you can see in the pictures there, but right here, if you look, there's plugs and all the metering blocks there. Okay, when I got them, pulled them right out of the box the first time, half of the plugs were not in there, so the car would start up, but it wouldn't run unless you were revving it. So I mean, no idle at all, no idle circuit completely at all. So I knew there was a problem, and after sending pictures to Patrick at Pro Systems, I think he's the main guru there, he probably owns it, but he said, oh yeah, you got a problem there, something didn't get finished assembled. Well, I'm not sure if I misunderstood him, you know, from, you know, the original conversation was that they would actually put them on an engine, and they would be checked as a running carburetor. I knew that he did say that they would go through a final, I think, a flow test, but there was no way they would have ran, so they had to go back again. Okay, so let's see if I can break this down in order. I don't want to skip ahead. So also, it says in his literature that he needs to update that the turnaround time on the carburetors, once they get them, is like 7 or 8 days. And I don't think he started on them until like 3 weeks. It took over a month to get them back. I want to say a month and a half. And then the bad thing was that I just thought he said they were just going to bolt right on and be ready to go. So what I had just waited, and also it's not a problem that I encountered since we put them on sideways, which I like sideways a lot better. It looks a lot better on this, and it probably runs better, but I had to put these spacers on because the linkage would run into the top plate on the blower here, so that had to be addressed. Of course, new fuel line has to be bought because the sideways mounting of the carburetors, and that I bought all that from Elky Digger. Yeah, if you've noticed here, this is a Hokified setup that I got going here. That's just temporary. I have to make a bracket for that spring to somewhere's in here to to give that spring return on the throttle linkage. I was running Enderle linkage, but it was inline, so I actually talked to Enderle because I didn't want to order a whole nother kit, and they gave me the pieces that I would need to turn my inline into a sideways application, which I think was about somewhere around $100 after shipping. So, but that saved me a little bit, and I just hate to have extra parts run, you know, that I'm probably never going to use again. I mean, I was in this understanding that once I switched to Holley's, I was not going to go back. So, okay, so we're going back to the carburetors. Went back to him. Of course, he paid the shipping, which is to be expected. So he sent me a return label. So they went back to him. He had them for probably at least 3 weeks, and he said that he would run them on an engine to make sure that they would be a running carburetor. So I got them back, put them on. They did run. They did idle, but they were super fat. I mean, they were puking black smoke out the tailpipe, and I could not get the adjustment even to come close. So I called Patrick. He's very hard to get a hold of. He's a very busy man. And he did call me back. We talked, and he told me to turn the idle mixture screws all the way in, and I think I caught it to where it stopped puking as much black, and the idle sped up. That was another problem, is the idle was so low, running so low because it was rich. So running those idle adjustments, 4-corner here at a half a turn out, that got me a better. So we knew, okay, it's just too fat at an idle. Okay, so he's given me the instructions that I need to go about this. So then there is idle jets, and I need a carburetor to show you, so hold on a second here. Okay, here's a carburetor that I have that I bought for parts on the cheap, so I can show you what we were doing to get it to leaning out the idle circuit. Okay, so he on my carburetor had drilled all of these holes out on the circuit. Now the outer ones he's got labeled as idle air, and the inner ones here are labeled as high air. Okay, so what he was having me do was drill these outer ones out to lean out my idle and give more air. So as you know how a carburetor works, it's pulling air from the top. It's not going to be pulling any fuel from the top. There's no fuel up here, and it's just drawing air. So we kept drilling those out, and I drilled them out. He had them set, drilled, and he uses a brass set screw. I think it's a 10x32 on the top here, and he had them drilled on the idle airs at 70 thousandths. So I kept drilling them and got clear out to over 90 thousandths, and then I was getting into the Allen set part. So it was at its max that you could drill that out. Okay, otherwise it would just be, there would be no way to put it in. It still needed that Allen part. So if you drilled it any bigger than 90 some thousandths, you'd be drilling it out too far, if you understand what I'm trying to get at. So that still made it too lean. So, and we were talking back and forth. I'd call him back on the phone, and he'd tell me the next thing to go to. So the next thing he wanted me to do was to keep leaning out the idle circuit. He just couldn't understand why it was running so rich in an idle. He wanted me to drill out the butterflies here on the primaries, little small hole. I think he said start with a 16th. Well, I got a little worried about that, about drilling that out, and I might be on the secondaries here. Yes, I'm on primaries on this side. Secondaries are over here. So, and talking back and forth to my buddy Curtis, he's probably more help than Patrick was. But not only that, because he lives here and he can come over and we can eyeball things. Eyeballing things is a lot better than, you know, phone conversation. But back to Patrick and I's discussion on what to do. He wanted me to drill those primaries out with, starting with the 16th hole, and I was kind of against that because there's no backward that I can't back up on that. And that is a common thing to do. I'm not saying that couldn't have been a good option. But so what I found out, because the transfer slot, if anybody knows what I'm talking about here, you want this transfer slot. I don't know if I can get that. I'm going to open it up a little bit so you can see it more. You see that transfer slot? It should be a square, okay? And one of my carburetors, I noticed when I first opened them up, Curtis and I were looking at them out of the box, and we noticed that one of them was right where it should be, square like that right there. But the other one, I hadn't looked at it, but it was like rectangle, like that. Okay, that's letting too much fuel in. Okay, so that was a problem. So what had happened was, and I'm not sure if Patrick was part of this or not, if it was already that way, but I would say when you're going through a carburetor like that, those would be things you checked. But all I did was loosen these screws on my carburetor, on the butterflies right there, and move those butterflies just a little bit, and that changed my transfer slot. So those were not where they should have been, and the linkage, being both carburetors are connected together, allowed the other carburetor to be opening the slots the same as, you know, the one that was open too much. So there was a problem, and that needed to be addressed before I thought about drilling out the primary butterflies. So talking to Curtis has an ATM carburetor, and on the ATM carburetors, since they are a carburetor that is built to tune and race, on the secondaries, I'll talk to you right here. Okay, so here's the primaries here. The secondaries are on this side. So on his, there's an adjustment on the ATMs, and probably, I don't know, quick fuels, brawlers, a lot of them maybe. There's an adjustment on the top side that you can adjust that and open up the throttle plates on the secondaries. Okay, so what you can do on the Holly is underneath, right there where my finger is, there's a little slotted set screw in there, and you can adjust that stop and change that transfer slot on the secondaries. Now, being you're in the primaries and you're not putting any fuel into the motor, opening those butterflies more is going to let more air in, and it's going to change your idle, you know, make it a little more leaner, opening them up. So I did that and made a big difference. The only problem is, where I got them to run into where they were lean enough, my idle was too high. So anyways, Patrick I had talked to him, and I was getting to the point where, okay, I think I can figure this out between Curtis and I, and just by, you know, I was getting an understanding of his carburetors and how they were built. So I was thinking, I really don't need your help anymore. But I had told him, you know, what I had done, because he wanted me to drill the butterflies. I opened up the secondaries, and goes, okay, I guess that would work. Like, all right, whatever. But I told him I couldn't get the idle to come down. So then we're into the metering block here. Okay, so this is a metering block off of this carburetor here. It's not the one off of my carburetors. They're all together and they're going to stay together. So we'll go into what he does to a metering block before I go into what we do to make the idle circuit leaner on my metering block. So what he does to these carburetors, where you see my thumb is right there, that is a jet that is preset from the factory. It's not replaceable. But what they do is they drill that out. Okay, they drill that jet out. And then they drill another set of holes right where my thumb is on each side. So there's 3 on this side and 3 over here on this side. And then what they do, if you can see up right at where my thumb is, if I can get that to focus, in that little hole in there on an angle, they put a jet in there. Okay, that changes the, you know, I'm not the pro on this, so I can't give you the exact accomplishment, I mean, what he's trying to do here, but he's trying to change from here to bringing the jet up here. Okay, and then he puts a now he said, this is where the other problem was. My set screws that went in there are 8 by 32 set screw, brass, just like the ones he uses on the top of the carburetor, just smaller. And then they drill them to whatever size they need. Okay, so this is fuel on this side. Now making them bigger is going to make it rich. Making them smaller, because you're dealing with fuel, is going to make it lean. Okay, so it works opposite from there. There's a no-brainer there, but anyways, I just had to say it. Okay, so both of my, on my metering blocks, there's jets up there where my thumb is, right there on an angle. He drills that out and taps it. Okay, and then a jet goes in there. Okay. Now, the second problem that I had, this is where I was really getting frustrated. So if any of you ever dealt with drills sizes of very, very small, it's hard to drill, and you're not going to drill anything steel, so they need to be brass to be able to drill them out. So I was ordering brass set screws from I think it's called Car McMaster. It's a bolt supply place. I think it's called McMaster. But anyways, I got the needed bolts set screws from them, and they were the right ones, because I'd already taken mine out, and I knew that they were a 8 by 32, and I knew how long they were, so I ordered exactly what I wanted. But I called Patrick, and because I didn't want to make any, because I knew the difficulty of drilling that small hole. So he has those jets right there in my paperwork. I'll show you. They are called idle feeds. He had them drilled at 36 thousandths. Okay. Now I checked most of these jets. They were correct. I think the high idle airs, they weren't really 41 thousandths. I think they were a little bigger than that. But I didn't change those. I'm thinking they were like 45, not 41. Okay, so these were at 36, and he said I needed to go to a 31, so he was sending me out jets. So I got the jets. Took over a week, I know that. I told him, you know, what I needed, because I already knew, and he sent me jets. I think he pre-sent them he had them sent from Proform, because they had a Proform. They were in a Proform box, great big. I mean, a box, you know, that it didn't seem like they put them in an envelope, but I don't understand why they have to go in a box. But anyways, I get them. They're 6 by 32. So I'm really frustrated. I'm like, did he not understand? I mean, I told him that they were 8 by 32s. So I email him, And I call him, and then he says, "Oh, well, somebody made a mistake. Those are always drilled out to 6x32. I'll send you 8x32s." So I wait again, a week or more. I get a box, same exact looking box from Proform. I open it up, the same freaking set screws from Proform. So I was extremely frustrated. You know, they were 31s like he wanted, but they were 6x32. I mean, they clearly weren't going to fit. I clearly couldn't talk to Patrick anymore. He made me too frustrated. I kind of lost trust in him. I know what I needed to do, so I took the set screws that I had already bought, the brass ones, and I drilled them to 31. So that got me close to where I wanted to be, to getting it lean enough in an idle, but it still was not quite lean enough. It just was a little too rich. So I drilled them out another set. Again, I had to buy special drill bits to do this, and I drilled them to, it was smaller than 27 thousandths. I want to say 26, maybe 25. It's hard to tell because the drill bits that I have, you know, you're talking about 1,000ths. There's no reading on a drill bit that small. You have to probably take a micrometer. I think I was microning them toward the end because I spilled the whole damn box. Well, there's another frustrating story, but anyways, did get them drilled. And then what else? You know, I talked about these carburetors being so fat. So let me go into the jetting on here that he has. So you see he has them pretty square. Same jetting from primary to secondary. I actually didn't change the main jetting on the secondaries. They're still at 82. But I significantly changed and leaned out on the primaries because I could not get it to run lean enough. I have a wideband that I use in conjunction with reading the plugs. My timing is right where I want it. I'd show you a plug, but you just have to trust me. The car's running really good now. So back to the jetting size that I went to. Curtis had a complete jet set that it allowed me to start from dropping to a 78 from an 82 on my primaries, and then that was too rich. I think I dropped to a 76, and that was too rich. So finally, he was missing the smaller jet size that I needed. I switched to a through all these carburetors that I had some Holley 600s, and I took the jets out, and they were small. I want to say they were like 64, 65, and I drilled them out. You actually have to drill them from the backside too, because there's on a jet that small, the backside is also, when I ended up drilling them to a 73 thousandths, I think. Those have a bigger hole in the backside, and then it's 73 on the front side. So if I just drilled out the front side, the backside of a 64 would still be small, which might have something to do with the flow to the carburetor. But so yeah, I finally got them dialed right. Like I said, this 82 on my primaries is now a 73. I'm still an 82 over here. My idle airs are at about 90 plus, I'd say 92 thousandths. My high airs, they're around 41. I'd say more like 45. My idle feeds are about 27 thousandths. Again, this is on the primary and the secondary on all the idle air jets and the idle feed. Okay, the only thing I didn't change was the main jet on the secondary, but everything else was leaned out. And you know, I know he makes them real fat for a blower because he doesn't believe in power valves. I know he sells carburetors with power valves, probably for different applications. He's got mine labeled here as a tunnel ram. I did discuss that with him. I don't have a tunnel ram. This is a blower motor. He did say, yeah, I know that it's still the same. But he said that if this is done right, it's going to run better with no power valve. So I'm not here to argue the point on that. You know, the only downside to the Pro Systems carburetors that I experienced was you know, that just the timely factor of what I had to go through with these carburetors with them. They were supposed to work right out of the box. They were far from that. I am frustrated with the jet system. I don't know what's going on there. You know, I will say, you know, when I was starting this this build for this change into these carburetors, he was the only one that took my call and was eager to work with me and put carburetors on that I had and modify them. I wanted to go with ATM, but when I talked to ATM about building a set of carbs, the wait time was like eight weeks, and I didn't want to wait for that. Of course, you know, I ended up waiting for that in the end. But yeah, I changed to this nice fuel log here, and the fuel lines is just really over the top nice. I really like that. So let me start it up for you here. Alright, that's it, guys. I'm really I'm happy with the carburetors in the end. You know, there is one thing I need to do here. I feel like these carburetors are my carburetors, being how much I had to go through on this. But you know, I don't like to downgrade anyone for anything and say bad things about anybody, but I say that butt word. But these carburetors, they are I think I've said enough here. Yeah. So there you go. All right, guys. You guys have a good one.